Hello, hi, welcome. My name is Mel. Thank you so much for being here. Now, if you're a reader, a book is an excellent gift, both for the giver and the receiver. For the giver, it's relatively inexpensive, and for the receiver, it's hopefully something that you'll enjoy. Now, as a reader, of course, I've received many books as gifts over the years, and I was wondering, what do these books say about me? So in this video, I'm going to be reading 3 books that have been gifted to me and figuring out, do these gift givers know me? And what does it say about me that these books were given to me? I feel like there are 2 main types of books as gifts. One is not necessarily personalized, but more of a vague matching of popular book, person I know who reads. And then there is the other type, which is I saw this and specifically thought of you for whatever reason, or I read this and I thought of you and I thought that you might enjoy it. So I've gathered up a pile of books that I've been gifted, and we're going to go through them together and see what they have in common. First, we have The Complete Novels and Stories of Sherlock Holmes. Now, my father-in-law gifted me this. It is his copy that has been well loved, and I think this falls sort of halfway between popular book with reader and I thought specifically of you, because my father-in-law is a huge bookworm. Like, he reads hundreds of books a year, and so he clearly thought of me while reading this, because I did tell him how I read Agatha Christie and enjoyed it. So I've changed my own mind. This sits in the I read it and specifically thought of you, because not only did he think of me, but he specifically dug this out of his cupboard to give to me so that I could read it. So I don't think it is reasonable for me to read 1,059 pages of a single book for this video, but maybe I could read one of the novels. Then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Now, this was gifted to me by my best friend, whose name is Addie. And this is a fun story because we lived together for a decent period of time. And I remember when this came out, and I was like, Addie, you have to buy this, because it's about Addie. And so she bought it and she read it, and now it's all come full circle because she bought this for my birthday for me to read. So I would say 90% of my in-person book recommendations come from my best friend Addie. So anything that she buys me is precious, and I love it so much. So we're putting this very high on the list of possibilities. Then let's go to that I received from my mother-in-law. This one was a gift I received for Easter because I don't eat chocolate, so she bought me a book. How nice is that? And then this one was a book that she read and then passed on to me because she thought I would enjoy it. So Lessons in Chemistry makes sense because I'm a woman in science. I love like 50s style fashion, and I'm pretty outspoken about women's rights and women in science and women in the workplace. So this is a very good buy by my mother-in-law, and I've already read it and absolutely adored it. Would highly recommend. They've just made a TV show about it on Apple TV with Brie Larson. So it's about a female chemist in the 60s and all the stuff that would have come along with being a female chemist in the 60s. It's a bit of family drama. It's obviously workplace drama. It's just, I love the characters in this story. I love 630, the dog. Yeah, highly recommend. This one comes with the glowing recommendation of my mother-in-law, who said something along the lines of, yeah, it's good, just thriller that'll get you by. So, raving reviews. Definitely an option. Haven't read a thriller yet this year, so maybe. Then we have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Now, Tessa Bailey has Addie in a chokehold. She is her Emily Henry. She will read anything Tessa Bailey writes, and I've already read this one, thoroughly enjoyed it. I read her second novel, like the same one in this series. I don't know, it's teal blue. I will put it right here. I did not enjoy that one as much, but I thought this one really had that rom-com feeling that sort of doesn't take itself too seriously, sort of romance, and I think the characters were balanced really well. So this one was very much an Addie recommendation of she read it, she loved it, and she wants me to read it so that we can discuss it, and I love those. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, I got the memoir of Ash Barty for Christmas maybe 2 or 3 years ago from one of my aunties, and at first glance I'm like, I'm not a huge tennis person. I haven't necessarily followed Ash Barty's career closely. I think this probably falls under the strong women category. She was the #1 tennis player in the world, and she is Australian. So I think this was bought under that particular category, but it could also just be when it came out, it was quite popular, so it was bought for me. So I don't know, somewhere in between. I would say I'm vaguely interested in reading it, but it never seems to be at the top of my list because there are so many other books that I'd like to read. So I don't know, probably not for this video. Then there's Me Before You by Jojo Myers, and this was definitely bought for me around the time that this movie came out. So when was that? 2016. So I would have just started university. And pretty easy leap to make. I enjoy romance. It's a popular movie. It's a popular book. Makes sense to buy. But I've heard it doesn't necessarily have the best disability representation, but I've also never seen the movie either. So if I was to ever watch the movie, I would want to read it first. So let me know what you think of this one, if it's worth picking up or if I should unhaul it. Next we have The Happiest Man on Earth, which I have read. This definitely falls under very specific to me category. So I'm pretty sure I even specifically named this book when we were talking before Christmas. So I've already read this. It's pretty short, pretty sweet, nothing too revolutionary, but I just love reading stories from that time and from people who survived something so horrific and managed to make a life out of it. So Happiest Man on Earth, already read it and enjoyed it. I also have Work Strife Balance by Mia Friedman. I do not know who this woman is, but my dad gifted this to me for Christmas, I want to say in like 2019, 2020. And this was an attack on me at that time. I was working a lot at that time. I was doing a lot of unpaid overtime to try and get things across the line, and I was pretty burnt out, and that was pretty obvious to everybody. I don't know if this was meant as a maybe look at that old work-life balance, but I believe this is a story about how she became successful and how this whole work-life balance thing is a bit of a myth and how we're all really struggling with it and just trying to do our best. So I don't know if this is what I feel like reading today, but it is on my TBR to be done eventually. Then we have Built for Ballet by Leanne Benjamin. This one actually says Happy Birthday Mel from Sharon and Bill 2022, so birthday present for 2022. This one makes a lot of sense. It is about a ballerina who grew up in Rockhampton, which is a country town in Queensland, and I grew up in a country town in Queensland, and I took ballet in a country town in Queensland. So I love ballet. Obviously I didn't pursue it professionally. I would love to read from somebody who, I guess, grew up and trained in a similar way to me, but managed to make a career out of it. So yeah, I think, she became a principal at the Royal Ballet in London. And I mean, look at those calves and those feet. Beautiful. Then we have another Shaz and Bill buy. Shaz and Bill really pulling through on this list. This is by Kaz Cook. She's an Australian author, journalist, comedian who writes about women's issues. So this is very up my alley, and definitely Sharon would have been like, oh yeah, Mel's a feminist, she'll enjoy this. So this is about a fresh, funny, and furious look at the terrible advice women have been told for centuries. Stroll with best-selling author Kaz Cook through instructions on how to day drink, wear a dress made of arsenic, pretend you're an idiot, have sex with a billionaire biker, curtsy, get properly harassed at work, exercise your nose, oppress other women, and frighten your uterus. I think this will be a very fun and funny read. So maybe we can put this on the list and we'll break up some of the other more serious ones. And finally, we have Fourth Wing. Now, I received this as my Secret Santa, but it has Addie written all over it. This is another full circle moment because I saw this recommended all over BookTube and Instagram, and I told Addie to buy it. She read it, she loved it, and then she recommended it to my Secret Santa to buy it for me. So since then, I've heard that either this is the best book of all time or it's horrible trash. So I really want to read this and see what I think about it. It was the BookTube darling of 2023. I feel like we want to have a good mix of fiction, non-fiction, and different genres. So we're going to go with 5. We're going to go with a quick thriller, The Mother by Jane Caro. Something for my specific interest, which is ballet, so Built for Ballet by Leanne Benjamin. Some fantasy magical realism in The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Some feminist laughs with You're Doing It Wrong by Kaz Cook. And of course, Leave It to Last, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Will I love it or will I hate it? So this is the stack. I may not read them in that order, but let's see if my friends and family really know what I like to read. This is a non-fiction book about all the weird advice that we've been given as women over the years. And I feel like sometimes I'm surrounded by such amazing people, amazing men, women in my life that sometimes I can be like, do people really think like that? Did anyone really think like that? And then you just read a comment on Twitter and you're like, oh no, yeah, those people exist. And this book sort of explores where a lot of those things come from and the history, specifically focused through an Australian lens. Kaz Cook's done a lot of work and written a lot of books, mainly about women. And I think she really captures the Australian sense of humour and being really well researched and going into just enough depth to understand what she's saying, but not too much that it becomes the focus of the book. It's split up into different sections like women's health, women in the home, women in the workforce, but the way it's all titled gives you a bit of an indication of the tone of the book. Like, we've got chapters like Sit Down and Shush, Your Health is Hysterical. find a man and do married sex, work harder, get paid less, and be a perfect mother, which is impossible. And I think one of the main things I enjoyed about this was its sense of humor. Like, it's very Australian, very dry sense of humor, and I think if you didn't like it, it would become grating very quickly, but I really connected with it and really enjoyed it. I'll find some quotes. If the government could put 10 netball coaches in charge of the relevant regulatory agencies and give them $100 million, this would all be sorted by Christmas, thank you. In reference to getting your body back after motherhood. And please don't send me the website stories suggesting mums with a tiny newborn should get their whole body waxed, buy a nice bottle of wine and try and feel sexy. I mean, why not try pulling your perineum over your head and wearing it as a jaunty bonnet? The title of this section is Cleanliness is Next to Godliness. Well, move it away then. This was like a good introduction to feminism and why it's important. I definitely learned things out of this and actually took notes of a few points and have gone on to research some of the books that she references here. It's funny and tongue-in-cheek. It's not a deep dissection of all these things, if that's what you're looking for. It's very pick up, put down, read a few little sections at a time between what other things that you're doing. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. It almost feels like a coffee table sort of book that you could have and people pick up and read as they go. Yeah, I would recommend this. I gave this 4 stars. This is The Mother by Jane Caro. It's a thriller suspense novel, I guess you could say. And we follow this mother, Miriam, who has 2 daughters, and one of her daughters has just gotten into this relationship which has moved very fast. They've gotten married very quickly, and she's very quickly moved with her new husband to this remote town. And what this book is about, well, I feel like it's supposed to be about, is how her daughter goes through this awful domestic violence situation. She's isolated from her family, isolated from her friends. She gets pregnant very quickly and then very quickly again. All the signs of awful, abusive domestic violence behaviour. And so we're following Miriam, the mother, and her relationship with her daughter through this time. And despite this really awful situation happening to them, I felt nothing for these characters. Particularly the mother, who somehow makes everything happening to her daughter about herself. And being in her head for this whole time becomes somewhat insufferable. The writing is not good. It's telling, not showing. It feels like she made a character sheet for everyone and listed out all of their quantities and thought, if I just tell you this is what these people are like, and if they say this is what they're like enough, maybe you'll believe it. But none of these characters ever really did anything to show what their personality was. It was all just told to us and we had to believe it. Nothing really happens for the first 2/3 of the book. It's supposed to be, building the tension for the big climax. But it made me just want to stop reading because the writing itself wasn't good and I wasn't really discovering anything new about these characters. And, while this is obviously a very important topic and it's important for people to be able to recognize the signs of these things happening and understand why law enforcement has such a hard time policing it when the other party is being so manipulative. But I can't help but feel like the story could have been more effectively told from the daughter's perspective and written with a bit more tension and plot. I gave this 2 stars. It was not good. I would not recommend it. Do not go out and read this. What does this say about me that it was given to me as a gift? Hopefully not a lot. I think this is just a generic. This book was advertised on front shelves of bookstores at the time, and it's like, you like reading, this is a book. We're following Addie, born in 1714 in rural France, and like any woman of the time, she is born to breed. She must get married, she must have kids. That's what women do. But she's 23, positively ancient for the time, and betrothed to marry this guy in town who she does not want to marry. She wants to live her life, she wants to explore. And so she makes a Faustian deal with the old gods to be free and not be tied down by anyone or anything. And in classic Genie 3 Wishes deal with the devil fashion, the god's like, okay, we can do that. But there's a catch. We didn't specify. And so she is free to live forever. But the catch is, no one will remember her. She can have a conversation with someone, and as soon as she's out of sight, they forgot that conversation ever happened. She also can never say her name, or write anything down, or create anything that leaves a lasting impact. And so we're following her over this 300-year journey as she's coming to terms in the beginning with what this actually means and the freedom it gives her, but also the loneliness that it means that she has to live with. We basically jump back and forth between 2 time points. One is 2014 in New York, and the other is following her journey from the beginning, from 1714 France throughout the years. And this book is just beautifully written. It's like V.E. Schwab can right. For a story with so much scope, she does such a great job of keeping the story focused and making every interaction count and every line contribute to the overall themes and the overall story. This is about loneliness and what it means to live a life and connection with other people and what it means to leave a legacy. You know, we see all of these people that she meets and how they mold her as a person and how she still leaves an impact on them and the world despite the rules of her bargain. She also develops a relationship with the devil himself, you know, the only person who remembers her. I don't want to say too much else because I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but this is such a special book. It is gorgeous, light fantasy. It is beautiful writing. It is strong, complex characters. I love this to bits. I gave it 4.5 stars. Built for Ballet by Leanne Benjamin is an excellent gift choice for someone like me. This book is the memoir of Leanne Benjamin, who's a prima ballerina born and raised in Queensland, who went on to have a decade-long career internationally and particularly with the Royal Ballet in England. As memoirs go, this is about as bog standard as you can get. There's nothing particularly groundbreaking about it. I don't feel like we got a deep psychological insight into what made her tick as a person, but it was interesting to follow her journey from rehearsing in a church hall in a country town to performing internationally as a prima ballerina. Now, I grew up in a country town in Queensland. I took ballet lessons in a church hall, so I feel like I had a unique connection to her particular journey. And obviously I love ballet and I'm very interested in it. But I feel like if you didn't know very much about ballet, this wouldn't be very interesting at all because it's a lot of, and then I went here and then I worked with this person and this person and this person. And then I went to this ballet and I performed this solo and I did this ballet. And, you know, if you have some idea of the ballet world and who's been important over the last few decades, you'd be like, oh, wow, she worked with Macmillan and she performed Giselle so many times. I feel like if I didn't have the ballet connection, I would have given up pretty early on in the piece. But as a gift, it makes a lot of sense. If I had been taller and thinner and worked as hard as her and decided to pursue ballet, sure, it could have been me. We both started from nothing. I gave this 3 stars. It's fine. Like, it is aggressively fine. If you love ballet and have a particular interest in the Royal Ballet, maybe this would be of interest to you, but it feels more like a historical record of her career rather than an interesting and nuanced memoir. If you haven't stepped foot in a bookstore, haven't seen a single BookTok, BookTube, Bookstagram video, firstly, hi, welcome, how did you get here? Secondly, this is Fourth Wing, the absolute smash sensation from 2023. It was everywhere. I don't know how you avoided it if you did. I don't know if you need a plot summary from me, but here it is. We're in a fantasy world, and everyone's sorted into 4 houses. Not those houses, quadrants. And we're following Violet, who is not like the other girls, and wants to follow in her father's footsteps and be a scribe. But her father dies, and her commander mother is like, no, I know you've been training your whole life to be a scribe, but you're actually going to go to the writer's quadrant now, where you're, like, probably going to die. Cool. So she's sent off to this war college to train to be a dragon rider to fight in the war. But everything is insanely competitive. People are dying left, right, and center. Not everyone's going to make it past the trials and be part of the army. No. And not just you're not very good, you're not going to be part of this army. No, you will die because the stakes at every moment in this book is you could die. You could plummet to your death and die. Someone could stab you in your sleep and you could die. See those guys over there? They're going to kill you. There are kids that have been training their entire life to get into the academy. And Violet's only ever trained to be a scribe, so her chances are low. And this is where my first issues with the story come, in that the stakes at all times are so high. We're supposed to believe that at any moment she and anyone she's developed any kind of relationship could be killed. But ultimately, because the tension is held at that point the whole time, it actually just means that the overall stakes of the book don't feel that high. It never feels like we're building to a moment, we reach the moment, and then we have a little bit of downtime afterwards. It's always like, you could die, you could die, you could die, you could die. I don't know, maybe that was just me, but I feel like it needed a bit more light and shade in terms of the pacing. And then, of course, there's the dark, broody, enemies to lovers, love interest in Xaden. And Xaden is absolutely giving fantasy name of a story I wrote when I was 14. And he's set up as this powerful example of the magic that these writers can have, and the connection they can have with their dragons. And then there's her best friend, who is obviously trying to be set up as the other corner of the love triangle, or love arrow, I guess. But it is so explicit that the author does not want you to root for them as characters. It's actually insane. So it really is just incredibly annoying for the entire book, because she's trying to create this tension between the 2 characters, but it just feels very forced. So that's essentially it. We're following Violet through this academy, going through the trials. There's sex, there's magic, there's dragons. People love it. And as for me, I gave this 3 stars. Now, before you come at me, I get it. Like, I get why people love it. So much fun. It's so easy to read. I just flew through this book and feel like we haven't had a popular dragon story in a while. So this sort of hit a note with people that they hadn't had for a while. And honestly, the dragons are the most developed and best characters in the book, if you ask me. I love the dragons. But it's not good. The exposition is super clunky. The characters feel pretty one-dimensional and very tropey. The world is underdeveloped and the rules don't make much sense. The writing is not great, and to me feels a bit at odds with the tone that we're trying to set with this fantastical world. But with all that being said, there's something nostalgic about it. Dua Lipa, Eat Your Heart Out, future nostalgia. I saw someone describe this as just a bunch of tropes in a trench coat, and that is absolutely right. I think it hits on that 2010s dystopian fantasy, Hunger Games, Divergent, Harry Potter time in our lives. And it just, I'm not saying this is the quality of Hunger Games or Harry Potter, but it gave me those same sorts of feelings of just flying through a book. Now, I did buddy read this with my best friend, so I think that definitely added to my enjoyment level of it. Overall, I get why people like this, but I feel like there is much better fantasy out there. There's better romantasy out there. I'm sure there are better dragon stories, but I think this is a case of right place, right time, right level of marketing, and perfectly aimed at nostalgia for my generation. So 3 stars, I enjoyed it, it was fine, I had issues with it. I'm probably going to pick up the next one and buddy read that too. Well, that is it for this video. We had some wins, we had some losses. Let me know what you think and let me know if you'd like to do this challenge too. Please tag me, I would love to watch your videos. See you next time.